Welcome back. Our next guest truly has too many credits to even talk about, so I don't even know if I should even try when she's sitting right next to me. She's an author, professor, woman extraordinaire, Nancy Stohlman. How are you?
I'm so good. How are you?
Great. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah.
So you do a lot. We're here to talk about your writing because you were an author, but you're also a professor at CU Denver and CU Boulder.
I am, yeah, and CCD here at Auraria.
Yeah.
Yep.
So you kind of just teach all over the place.
I do. I'm kind of doing the adjunct shuffle, we call it. So yeah, it's really fun.
What's it like getting to teach at different places and teach here on the Auraria campus?
Yeah, well, you know what's most unique is that each school kind of has its own personality.
Sure.
So the students that I teach here in Denver are very different than the students I teach in Boulder. And so, you know, I might be teaching the same material, but the interactions in class are completely different. So it's kind of neat just seeing how different groups of students kind of create their own class synergy.
Exactly. And you kind of teach a variety of different things. You were saying at CCD you teach media and mass media and journalism. What else do you kind of teach? What do you enjoy teaching?
Well, I've taught all sorts of things. I teach creative writing as well, journalism, and then things like magazine, new media. I teach them how to blog. And then over at CU Boulder, I'm teaching like rhetoric and composition and argumentation. So yeah, just all over the place, but it's all writing, so it's all wonderful.
Yeah, all writing based, which you are also an author.
Yes.
You've written many different books.
Yeah.
So just talk about what is your life like as an author? What is that process like?
Oh, wow. Well, it's really less glamorous than it sounds, probably. I think that people have this idea that it's sort of glamorous, but it's really just a daily part of my life. So I've been writing professionally for 15 or 20 years now. Awesome. And so it's just really, it's almost like drinking water. You know, I couldn't really go a day without it or I'd feel really cranky. But I write in all these little spaces. I mean, as I'm commuting to Boulder to teach, I'm writing on the train, you know, or when dinner is like waiting for the pasta to boil, I'm like jotting down notes. So it doesn't look like, you know, a lakeside view and endless time, but I think it's a real practical way of approaching a career in the arts as opposed to the idealized career in the arts.
Well, because I think some people think like writing and being an author sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day, like just writing, but it's not. It's living life and, as you said, going through your day, finding little things.
Yep.
So let's talk about some of the different books you've written. What's your favorite book you've written? Can you say? Do you have a favorite?
It's always the newest one is the favorite, probably. So that is this one. Can I hold it up?
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So this is Madame Velvet's Cabaret of Oddities, and I think it's really important. I want you to see like the size of the pieces in here. So lots of white space, and they're really tiny, and that's because I write flash fiction. So flash fiction is an entire genre of writing that are stories, like complete stories with beginning, middle, and ends, but all under 1,000 words. Okay. And as you can see, many of mine are under 200 words. And so there's a real art. It's like learning how to miniaturize. Yeah. So some people kind of will approach flash fiction and they'll say, oh, that's cute, or that's a little party trick, or oh, that must be easy, I'll start there, you know. And it's really the opposite. I mean, I started writing novels and I've kind of like now shrunk down to 200 words. So it's a really dynamic genre. People are really getting into it, discovering it, figuring out how complex it is. And so most of my books are flash fiction. So they're collections of flash fiction. And this one is what I would call a threaded collection. So each of the pieces stand alone, but they're contributing to like a bigger story. Okay. So they're almost like chapters, but self-contained story chapters. Okay. So I love it. And this one is all carnival themed and like clowns and medicine shows and like vintage like freak performers, and so it's perfect for Halloween. Right?
Perfect. I mean, it's coming out right now.
Yeah, so it's just out now. Like I'm waiting for my box of books to arrive. This is actually the proof. So this is what you get like before you get the real copy. You get the proof. So that's actually what I have. And then I'm doing this big performance on October 26th here in Denver at the Mercury Cafe, and we're going to actually read the book with performers, like as clowns and ringmasters and the whole thing. So it's going to be nutty and fun, and there's music. And
do you have a favorite story in the book?
I do. you. Well, I have a lot of favorites, but one of my favorites is what was really an impetus for a lot of them. It's called My Mother Was a Circus Clown, and I did a book trailer of it. It's actually you'll probably be seeing it here in a second. But it's about a mother, it's about a narrator who's lamenting the fact that her mother was a clown, and so she didn't get tucked in correctly, and she didn't get to hug her because her mother was always beating her head with a rubber chicken, or but there's something about it that's very kind of both funny and sad.
Okay.
And I think that's what people say a lot about my work, is that it's kind of funny on the surface, but there's this underlying feeling of this sort of sadness or poignantness. I don't do it purposely. It's just kind of what comes out. I see things that are entertaining, and then somehow the sadness comes through.
Which, to do all that in less than 200 words takes some real talent and skill.
Yeah,
it's not the easiest thing.
No, it's not easy.
Does your mother know that you wrote that story?
She does.
Okay.
And actually, I wanted to dedicate the book to her, but then I got really worried that she would be like, what are you saying about me? Because like the clown mother ends up like joining a cult and all sorts of things in this book, right? So I sent it to her, and I was just like, hey Mom, this book's coming out. Do you want to just read it? And so I was kind of waiting to see what she said, and then she wrote back and she's like, oh, I love it. And I was like, great, because I'd love to dedicate it to you, but I didn't want,
Want you to be
for
like,
her to be like, you hate me.
Is this the first book you've dedicated to her?
Yeah.
So this was a big book. Oh, wonderful. And I also want to talk about, in November, you kind of put together something called Flash Nano.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about that, because that's coming up.
Flash Nano is awesome. So this will be the 7th year of Flash Nano, and it goes in along with the NaNoWriMo that happens in November. So if you don't know what that is, it's the National Novel Writing Month, where writers all over the world, like 200,000 writers, will attempt to write a novel in a month, which is like really cool, right?
Yeah.
And means you have to write like 2,000 words a day. And about 7 years ago, everybody's like, okay, November's coming, are you gonna do it? And like, I can't get into novel mode. I'm writing too much flash fiction. And so I created this alternative, Flash Nano, where we'll write 30 stories in 30 days in the month of November. And so every year, more and more people kind of jump on this Flash Nano bandwagon. And I put a prompt out there every day. Doesn't mean you have to use the prompt, but it's just sort of a fun. And then you end up writing a whole lot of stories.
Wonderful, yeah. And where can people see these prompts?
Yeah, so my website's a great place, so nancystohlman.com. And I'll put them on social media and stuff, so if you're following me on Twitter or Facebook or anything like that, I'll put them out there. And then I have a mailing list, too, if you want me to send them right to you. So.
Now, we're running out of time, but I just want to ask, because I think it's so important. In your opinion, why should people write every day?
Oh, yeah. So people should write every day because it's a practice. And it's like stretching. It's like doing yoga, right? If you wait till Saturday to stretch, then you kind of have to go all the way back to where you were the Saturday before. And so I think if you just write every now and then when you come to your work, it's like a stranger, you know? But when you write every day, even 10 minutes a day, you're creating a relationship with your writing. And so when you're not writing, you're still thinking about it. It's like being in love, you know? When you're not seeing your book, you're still thinking about your book. And then when you get to have 10 minutes, it's so amazing. When you don't get to see your work for a week or 2 weeks or a month, they're so distant.
Yeah.
So
wonderful. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And I want to encourage everyone to come to the Mercury Cafe on October 26th, pick up a copy of the book, see some fun performances.